Hello, Art World lovers. Welcome to the Art World Love podcast, where I, Alec Paul, your host, will be interviewing people from the art world to hear the story of their involvement with art. This podcast is based on people involved in various levels of the art world, sharing their experiences and growth within it. Interviewees will include artists, historians, collectors, dealers, gallery personnel, curators, writers, musicians, professors, and more. This podcast will provide listeners with the opportunity to learn more about the art world from different perspectives, with new episodes available weekly. I'm hosting this podcast because I myself currently have a day job and I'm an artist, and I have the ability to listen to music or podcasts while I work, and sometimes I feel like learning something while I'm getting through the daily grind, especially something I'm interested or involved in. I believe there are a lot of other people out there, maybe also involved in the arts, that feel the same way. There are a lot of good podcasts out there about art, but I hope to provide something a little different from those. Maybe my guests will give some insight or ideas to some of my listeners that are struggling with a project or an idea. For example, say I interview a painter, and they may unlock something in the mind of another painter that listens to their episode. Or maybe you just want to learn something about the art world in general. There are many professions in the art world that most everyday people don't even think about. Gallery directors, art enthusiasts, jurors, and maybe even the patrons that support artists, these people can be very interesting and insightful to the art world. This podcast won't be limited to just the visual arts too. I would also like to interview musicians, producers, comedians, writers, other podcast hosts, and etc. Like I said before, I myself am an artist. I'm a painter and a sculptor, and I dabble in many other things in the arts. But the focus of this podcast will not be on myself. The more you listen to the podcast, you may get to know a little bit more about me through the conversations I have, but my main focus will be on the guests I have on the show and what we can learn from them. I give my guests full rights to the audio, even though I will not be editing anything in or out of the interviews, so there is no worry of anything that is said on this podcast being brought out of context or misconstrued for the listeners. The conversations that will be had on this podcast will be mostly raw and organic. Unlike this video here, I'm sure y'all can see my eyes bouncing around the screen, reading the script that I typed up a few minutes ago, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear and that I get everything said that I want to for this introduction. So the episodes with guests will be nothing like this. In fact, this will be the only video with just me talking, so please keep listening. Expect each interview to be at least an hour long or more. With all that being said, I really look forward to interviewing the people that I have on my list so far. To start off, I will be hosting these interviews all on Zoom calls, which should be good enough to get some helpful and fun information across. If you are listening to this and you think you know someone that would be a great guest on the show, or maybe even yourself, please shoot me an email at artworldlovepodcast@gmail.com and we'll go from there. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please, again, feel free to send me an email to artworldlovepodcast@gmail.com. Share and like the interviews you love, especially this introductory episode, to give listeners the rundown on what to expect. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new episodes. And that's all I have for now. Thank you for being here, listening, and I look forward to having some fun learning about the art world here in the future.